Corruption in the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Let's get dialed in. Stephen Broussard has spent the last 30 plus years in law enforcement. He's now running for Jefferson County Sheriff in the Republican Party, and he joins us now. Stephen, welcome to Texas Talkin.
Hey, welcome.
Glad to have you here, and appreciate you coming on tonight. I know you wanted to mention something before we get rolling here with the interview, and so go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to put a disclaimer down that this is not a political advertisement. I'm not being paid to do this, nor am I paying anyone to put this program on.
Yes, that's exactly right. This is an interview, and I'll conduct it as such. So you've told me that the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office is rife with corruption. And I'm wondering if you can provide us some of the more glaring examples of corruption you've seen within that office firsthand.
Yes. Well, when I was employed there, we were instructed to overinflate our budgets, usually by 3 times, if not more, knowing that it would go to commissioner halfway point met. And then so the money that was allotted for the budget, once you bought your equipment and there was allocated funds left over, we were told to go ahead and spend that money, whether or not we needed the equipment or not. For an example, like computers, buy them all up and then just throw them in the closet. And then where they went after that, I had no idea. So that's one of the, I believe that's corruption. It's taxpayers' dollars that is going to waste. And the reason they did that is they told us that if we didn't spend that money, we wouldn't get it the following year, the same amount.
So they were buying things like laptops they didn't need.
Laptops, computer, night vision, binoculars, many of these items.
And then they'd go in the trash.
Some of it would go in the trash. I had a feeling that the binoculars and the night vision were ending up on deer camps somewhere.
Oh, wow.
So,
what about guns?
Many guns were unaccounted for.
Unaccounted for?
Unaccounted for. I think sometimes when employees were terminated, they were never turned in, and there was never a checks and balance on to see where the weapons were at.
What kind of guns are we talking about? Just regular sidearms or?
Sidearm shotguns. There was a couple fully automatic weapons.
Wow.
No one knows where they went.
So what?
Never.
Just so I understand you clearly, what you're telling me, Stephen, is that there are fully automatic weapons that nobody knows where the hell they're at, that were bought by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office.
That's correct.
Wow. So, I mean, for all we know, they could be in the hands of somebody from the cartel or God knows who.
Who knows?
That's insane. So just so our viewers are aware, you're running against incumbent Zena Stevens, who is a Democrat. And I'm not wildly familiar with her history, but I do know that she got into a bit of trouble not too long ago. And in fact, at one point, I believe she wasn't allowed to have a firearm. Can you delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, and so she was indicted on a charge of, I think it has to deal with official oppression with her budget. I'm sorry, with her campaign funds. Supposedly she placed a decimal in the wrong place, but I've was cleared, and I can get into more of that corruption here in a minute. But the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office refused to prosecute her case. And then so it was moved to Chambers County, who threw it back to Jefferson County, saying that it wasn't their problem. Ken Paxton's office filed the charges against her.
Ken Paxton's office filed charges against Zena Stevens.
Correct.
Interesting. Yes. Well, why are you running for sheriff? Give us your reasons that motivated you to run for sheriff in the first place.
Well, the employees are being mistreated. They're terminated without good cause. In the last probably 5 months, there's been 50 employees between the 50 have either been terminated, retired, or just couldn't take it any longer and resigned. This is a cost to taxpayers' dollars if this isn't taken into control. And it's time that place is taken over with someone that's going to look out for the better interests of the public. Zena Stevens isn't doing that. She's a spendthrift, and she's a narcissist as far as I'm concerned, or she wouldn't allow those things to happen.
So go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's the reason I'm running for sheriff, and to get the department back up to standards. She's done away with physical training in the police academy.
Done away with? You mean eliminated it?
Eliminated it because friends of hers couldn't pass the physical agility part in the academy.
You can't meet the standards, just change the goals, huh?
That's exactly, yeah. And that's not the way to conduct business.
No, sir, it's not, especially not when we're talking about people's lives being at stake, who the police are charged with protecting.
Yeah. Well, and one of Zena Stevens' biggest concerns should be the corrections department. That falls under the sheriff, and she's just letting that go to the wayside. But more of the corruption there is what was his Walker? Can't think of his first name right now. He's having to do weekends.
Lane Walker?
No, the Walker, the electrician.
Oh, okay.
I'll think of his name here in a minute. Let's see, I might have it written down here somewhere. So let's see if I've got that anywhere. Calvin Walker. So he was indicted and convicted of stealing funds from the school district in Beaumont. So they're allowing him to serve his time out by doing weekends.
So he just checks into jail on a Friday and then checks out on Sunday.
Yeah. So and so the other day, someone got a hold of me and even sent me a video. I'll release it here sooner or later. But he forgot his money out in the car, so he couldn't put it on the books for his commissary. So they walk him back out to the car by her orders to let him get his money to come back in with. They don't do that for any other inmate.
Regular Joe Blow inmate.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what he's donated to her campaign. And then, she promotes a major, Guillory, who owns Guillory's Record Service, to major out in corrections. And she's never worked in law enforcement or corrections. So she goes to a quick academy and promoted to major. And really, I don't think she knows what she's doing.
Wow.
But they contribute heavily to her campaign.
Isn't that something?
That's kind of interesting to me. I know there's a lot of people aggravated that I signed up or filed to run on the Republican ballot.
Yeah. And I want to get into that because, recently we passed a resolution. And when I say we, I mean the Jefferson County Republican Party, of which I'm a precinct chair. We've passed a resolution, and I voted for it, indicating that we would not support candidates who run as Republicans who have not voted in the previous two Republican primaries. Let me explain to you the rationale behind that. And the reason why I voted for it is because, as you well know, we've seen rhinos infiltrate the Republican Party, especially here at a local level. And they run as Republicans, not because they agree with Republican Party principles or the Republican Party platform, but instead because they know that if they don't run as a Republican, they won't get elected. I would throw out Dade Phelan as a prime example of that. I think Dade would much prefer to run as what he is, a Democrat, but he can't run as a Democrat because he would never get elected in District 21. So I asked a point of order when this resolution was up for consideration. And I said, because part of it was the candidate needs to embrace or support Republican values. And so I wanted to know, okay, well, who defines what Republican values are? And the answer that was given to me is the platform of the Republican Party of Texas. So with all of that in mind, I voted in favor of it because I do believe that if you're going to run as a Republican, you should be doing it for the right reasons because you believe in the platform and the legislative priorities of the Republican Party of Texas. So let me just throw it out there to you, Stephen. Why are you running as a Republican? And that's the thing that so many people are hung up about.
Yeah, I understand. So in the past, when I grew up in the 70s, Democrat was a party to be with. So,
and what do you mean by that? In what ways?
well, they were the biggest supporters of the unions. I was working in the refineries at the time. And then over the years, the Democratic Party began to fail the public. Well, when I went to work for the sheriff's office, Mitch Woods was a Democrat. And if we didn't sign up and file to run on a Democratic ballot, Zena Stevens was checking the ballots to see how we registered. And if you were a registered Republican, it could have cost you your employment.
Wow.
Because you wouldn't have been able to vote for Mitch Woods in the primary. So everyone was pulling in fact, we were basically told by some supervisors, if you're not on the Democratic ballot for the primary, you probably won't have employment after the general election. Well, people began to, buck that system and said, well, it's our constitutional right to vote how we want. But that doesn't do any good for a police officer in the state of Texas when we have at-will employment. They will just
be fired for any reason, really.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's why I was a Democrat stayed on the Democratic Party in the past and just had to wait it out until the general election to vote Republican.
So because you voted in the Democrat primaries, and I'm assuming for Democrats in the general election, essentially your whole life, right? And now you're running as a Republican. So there are going to be those, and I would include myself among them, who would question the motives. I don't know, whether you voted for Donald Trump, for instance, in 2016 and 2020 or not. But what can you tell voters and other members of the Jefferson County Executive Committee and the Republican Party like me? What can you tell us that would reassure us that you're running as a Republican because you agree with the Republican Party of Texas?
Well, I believe the conservative ideas behind the Republicans now is what's needed. And I'm not too sure if the Republican Party in Jefferson County isn't riddled with rhinos. But
I believe it is.
Yes, but less government interference is big for me. I think we need less of their involvement in our daily lives.
Amen.
And most of the platform I agree with the exception of restricting the unions. I'm trying to get it together here. Let's see. So the refineries, their unions operate on a level that is a national level. They have they can pull from other resources. In Texas, with the police officers, we can only pull from a local resource. So we're limited on our authority. And now the Republicans are wanting to restrict that even more. So what's going to happen is the police unions won't have the authority to help out police officers as much, and they'll continue to either resign, look for employment elsewhere, or leave the Republican Party because of that. So qualified immunity, people are confusing. Police officers the qualified immunity only helps them in a civil case. If they
and I just so that because I'm sure there are going to be those who don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. What is qualified immunity?
Well, to give you an example of that, if an officer makes an arrest, and let's use family violence, well, 9 times out of 10, the male is usually the aggressor and the one arrested. Yeah. And so the female will come back later on down the road and say, well, he really didn't assault me. I don't want the charges filed. So the district attorney doesn't have the power to continue on without a witness. They can, but it's difficult. So they drop the charge. Well, the qualified immunity stops the male from seeking an attorney and suing the officer for the arrest. So the qualified immunity protects the officer from the civil suit because it was a justified arrest at the time. Is that making sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the ones who really are protected are attorneys and judges. They have absolute qualified immunity. So people are looking at it at the wrong aspect. The officer did his job at the time, and you can't blame him. So that's what the qualified immunity for police. People think that because a police officer has qualified immunity, they can go out and commit crimes, assault people, and get away with it. That's not true.
And you're saying that the police union has
if the Republicans restrict the police unions, that may be done away with, and now the police officer may have to face civil action.
I see. So circling back to the original question, aside from the Republican Party and being at odds maybe with the police union, is there any part of the Republican Party platform, the Republican Party of Texas platform, rather, that you don't agree with or that you take issue with?
Not on the local level, no. It seems like things are going along okay. It's just I don't understand their refusal of the Republican Party of me wanting to run Republican. Even if I have run or have been a Democrat in the past, I mean, is there not any such thing as seeing the light and moving to the better party?
So when you say not at the local level, you mean like in Texas being the local level or
county?
The county, okay.
The county level, yeah, because that seems to be where the problem is.
Yeah.
When I've spoken to anyone on the state level, they were more than happy to help me out. I believe that the reason the county level Republican Party is rejecting my filing is because of the corruption I've been exposing over the years.
Well, that would definitely raise eyebrows, especially with some of the things that you shared just with me tonight. But I meant, what I mean is ideologically, the ideas that the Republican Party of Texas believes in, the legislative priorities. In other words, what we're trying to accomplish in Austin for the state of Texas, you don't take issue with any of that part of our platform.
No, not on a state level. I haven't found anything yet that I would disagree with.
Okay.
Except for the fact that it seems like on an overall basis that the Republican Party wants to restrict police unions.
Right. Okay. So that's the issue where you kind of depart.
Yeah, I take issue with that because if you look at your bigger cities and some of your bigger counties, they're civil service. So and the reason Jefferson County doesn't want civil service is because that will stop them when they're elected of firing everyone that's involved with that office at the time and then hiring all their friends. Civil service, it will stop that. And so, in fact, I have to just be honest here. The last time I was going to file to run on the Republican ballot, me and Judy Nichols had a big argument about that. And she said that the sheriff has to have complete control over their department. Well, civil service gives them even more control, and it's a savings to taxpayers because once you follow the steps and do the write-ups on the officer and they're terminated, the odds of them getting their employment back is very low. So, and that's the right thing to do.
So Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. So, so we go back to what I take issue with, and that's with the restriction on the unions.
Okay.
Or the police union.
Where can people go if they want to learn more about you? And I'm going to temper that question with giving you an opportunity to address some of the things that I know are being thrown around out there about your time with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. What do you want to tell our viewers when they encounter that information about you, about being let go from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office? I assume that you have a different take on exactly what transpired there.
Oh, yes. I was maliciously and falsely indicted after already being cleared by the FBI, the Texas Rangers, Ken Paxton's office, the DA that was in at the time, and I think even Bob Wortham had refused to indict me on any criminal offense after they looked at everything on an arrest I had made.
Tell us
And then,
about that. Give us the Cliff's Notes version of what transpired there.
yes, someone came into Judge Lane Walker's courtroom, and I believe it was an employee of Mr. Philip Klein, and attempted to serve the judge while he was on the bench. And we wouldn't have let him, we didn't let him approach. And he tried to tell us he was a federal process server, which didn't hold any water in the courtroom. And then he said, well, just do what you have to do because I'm not leaving. And so I placed him into custody. And then so I confiscated some evidence, which the sign out in front of the courtroom says no electronic devices allowed inside. And he had snuck in a recording pen. And I'd made a copy for my report. And so then they accused me of falsely taking the evidence and tampering with it. Well, that was sent off for forensics and it came back clear. I hadn't tampered with it. And the complaints on me still kept coming in. And then so the sheriff's department had a kangaroo IAD, internal affairs hearing, and then they determined that I might have should have handled the evidence a little different and recommended I attend a evidence school. Well, Mitch Woods called me into the office and said he didn't believe any of my statement, and he was going to terminate me. And he said everything in my statements were lies. And I asked him, well, to show me where the lie is, because there is no lie. And then he told me, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to terminate you anyway. So I was terminated. And then all the complaints were coming in on the mishandling of evidence and improperly taking the recording pen, amongst other things. And then so, I had been terminated for, I guess, about a year. Then the Texas Rangers came to my house on Super Bowl Sunday the following year, did an interview and said, well, there's nothing criminal here. And I said, well, I've been telling y'all that. So then they cleared the case. Well, Democratic Judge Johnny Stevens, for some reason, decides to hire 2 years later, almost to the date before the statute of limitations was up, decides to hire a special prosecutor. And this was a son of a friend of Judge Stevens that they had went to law school with together. So he comes in and puts on this big charade of doing an investigation. And then, so then Don Dodd called me and said, well, Wayne Riyad wants to hear about your case. He's willing to help you out. You know what? I need to back up a minute. That was before the special prosecutor came in. So I thought it was to help me get my employment back. So I go to see Mr. Riyad, and I have a bullet list of my complaints about the mistreatment of employees. And he says, you're not here for that. I said, yeah, I'm here to get my employment back. He said, no, you're here because I'm going to protect you against any criminal action. And I said, well, I'm not being investigated criminally. I've already been cleared. And he said, trust me, it's just a matter of time. And that's when Judge Stevens hired the special prosecutor and had me indicted. Oh, let me back up one more time. Mr. Riyad told me that if I didn't give up Lane Walker, then I was going to be under criminal investigation.
And so what did you do?
I told him I didn't know about any corruption and I didn't believe Judge Walker was corrupt. And he said, well, that's not our thoughts. Well, what bothered me.
So hold on a second. It sounds to me like this Wayne Rio guy had it out for Judge Walker.
He did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, is this the same Wayne Rio or Riyadh, who
Riyadh, Morgan and Quinn law
yeah,
firm.
isn't he involved with like the Beaumont Examiner and a couple of the TV news stations?
I think he owns all of it. He's a
That's what I
billionaire
thought.
law firm. Yeah. So Don Dodd claims to be the publisher of the Examiner, and he may be that, but from what I'm told, Wayne Riyadh owns it. Yeah. So,
Okay.
so that's more of the corruption, and more to me, it's organized crime also. And so, yeah, when I told him that I didn't know anything about any corruption on Judge Walker, that's when he told me it was just going to be a matter of time before I was basically indicted. And the sad part about this is, so, okay, I'm Catholic, but I don't believe in hell. But if there is one, there's going to be several people going there, because I had my wife and my 8-year-old daughter in there when this went on, because I thought I was there to get my employment back. So to do that in front of them and have them upset and crying was just deplorable.
Do you feel
And
like Wayne Riyadh was basically telling you, "I'm going to help you, but only if you throw Lane Walker under the bus"?
that's exactly what they were doing.
Wow.
I was told if I didn't throw Judge Lane Walker under the bus, I was going to be indicted, and sure enough, I was.
And what were you indicted on? Did the evidence tampering?
Evidence tampering, and then tampering with a government document. The report I wrote on the arrest I made, they said it wasn't. It was a false report. Well, the judge that it went to and the district attorney at the time hired a special prosecutor and another judge for this case, and they upgraded the charge. So you see, that's, to me, it's just more corruption and organized crime in Jefferson County.
It sounds to me, and I don't know all of the details, and of course I'm hearing your side of the story, but it sounds to me like you may have been getting dangerously close to some truths that certain people didn't want exposed.
It's exactly what was happening. And well, even Mr. Philip Klein has challenged me to debates and to do podcasts and let's get the truth out. And then now he's backed out, blocked me from his Facebook account because I was giving up what the truth is. So Mr. Klein is far from it. And
he's a gutter snipe and a total joke, but
yeah. Well, he's involved, I believe, with Mr. Wayne Riyadh and some of the other law firms that were, and this is how this originated. Philip Klein was suing Judge Walker. So they were trying to serve him papers, and then I don't think they expected me to be in the courtroom at that time and intercept the person attempting to serve the judge. And yes, that's how that came about. And then when I refused to take part in their corruption and their organized crime, well, then I was indicted. And then, of course, Philip Klein began to post up lies on me on his Facebook page. And then he would have Don Dodd write articles about how I was going to go to prison and then who was going to take care of my family. And then they would throw the paper in my driveway.
Wow.
And then my 8-year-old daughter's, kids at school are asking her if her dad's going to prison.
Yeah, they don't care about anything.
No, that was it. So the first attorney I seen because I was under indictment, I had to hire an attorney. Ended up being, he was involved in it. I went to Houston, and he wanted me to cop out. He would lower my felony charges to misdemeanors, get them reduced to misdemeanors. And so I blew up on him, and I had to leave his office before I got into more trouble. And then so all the other people that were indicted during this same episode, all their cases cleared, but mine was still there. And when I contacted my attorney and said, you know what, they hired a special prosecutor and a judge. It must mean they have time on their hands to hear these cases. This has gone on for a year, and I haven't once had an opportunity to explain my case in court, and my civil rights have been violated to a speedy trial. and I sent it in an email, and I said, forward this to the special prosecutor that was hired. And then 3 days later, he says he's dropping the criminal charges because basically he can't prove that there was any criminal action that took place there.
So, well, Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so Judge Stevens, and then hiring this special prosecutor and everything else, it cost the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars for all this.
On something that went nowhere.
Yeah, it's something that went nowhere, and that's something that had already been cleared from the FBI, the Department of Justice, all the way down to Texas Rangers. You know, and they're God Almighty. If they say you're clear to go, you should be good to go.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. They're about as badass as they come.
Yeah. I'm being a little facetious here, but hey, you know. So I mean, that wasn't good enough, and then he has to hire a friend of his son, you know, to come in and do this big investigation, and it still went nowhere. Yeah, that's corruption and that's organized crime, in my book.
Stephen, we're about out of time, but I want to give you an opportunity to tell our viewers where they can go if they want to learn more about you and more about your story and why you're running for sheriff in Jefferson County. Is Facebook the best place for folks to find you?
Yeah, right now, let's look me up on Facebook, Stephen Broussard. I live in Port Neches. You can hit me up on Messenger. I never reveal sources unless it's cleared through them. And a lot of this information I'm giving you is coming from employees of the Jefferson County Sheriff's.
Current employees?
Current employees, yes. They're fed up.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fed up.
So they're giving you information that you've then shared with me tonight.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That's how bad it's gotten. And I've instructed them. They're saying they're going to come public with the information, and I've told them, hold off on that because it's going to mean your employment. They will find a reason and they will terminate you.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I would be a sheriff that, hey, you want to talk smack on me? Well, go ahead. You know, I have nothing to hide. You need the evidence if you're going to come at me. So I just don't think that they're being protected right now. And that's one of the reasons I want to run. And then I can't make promises, but these people that were near retirement, you know, we can go back, review their history, see what's up while they were terminated. And if it was unjustly, give them their employment back. Let them make their retirement. And I think that the citizens really need to look at this. I can't understand why the Republican Party is so against me, unless it's because of all this I've exposed.
Certainly makes me wonder.
Well, I mean, you know, and why won't they do an interview? I mean, I'm sure you've heard I'm probably nuts. I'm probably some old nut. Well, why not? Let's have a podcast and get everybody on here and let's talk about this, or do a public forum somewhere.
Well, that's why I invited you on tonight. I mean, you know, we may not agree on everything, but I do believe that you should have an opportunity to be heard. You're running for a major county office, and so that's why I had you on. Yeah.
Well, everyone I've challenged to a public forum has declined the interview, so that should tell you something right there.
Yeah, it makes me.
If I'm corrupt and I'm nuts, we'll just come out and prove it. I don't know what else to say about that.
Stephen Broussard, everyone. Stephen, I appreciate you coming on again. I'd like to, you know, tell our viewers you can go to Stephen's Facebook page, learn more about him. And folks, you've been dialed in to Texas Talkin' with Shiloh Platts. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas.